What is going on, guys? It is your boy Perry, and I'm here with the special Tuesday edition of Perry's Points, brought to you through 49ers Hive. Catch us on Niners News. Matt and Zach talk 49ers Hive, Niners News just about every week, every day. They're taking a break this day. Matt's off in Florida. Zach's working. So you guys are stuck with me. Perry's Points Tuesday edition. I will also be talking tomorrow as well. Guys, I'm joined by none other than Javier Vega. Javier Vega has his own podcast. Javi, what's the podcast exactly? Let the listeners know what you're doing.
Oh yeah. Thanks for having me, first of all. Podcast, this Fourth and Goal podcast, we're like 155 episodes in, so it's been going pretty good. 2 full NFL seasons now, this third off season. So hopefully, everything is going on the up and up, so it should continue really well. And then we started the website, 49ers Gold, myself and Luke Keck and some others over there. So shout out to all those guys. But yeah, just, continue to grind, grow, and, try to make, like everyone else is trying to make their way into this very competitive arena of what it is 49ers media or blogging, whatever you want to call it.
It was kind of a self-thought I had on the walk today. I was like, I wonder how much other coverage and how much other fan reaction other football teams get compared to the 49ers. And I mean, being 49ers fans and covering the team, it's like that's all we're exposed to is just 49ers. Yeah. But when I try to venture off and look at other football teams, I feel like I don't see the type of fans that we interact with and we have within the community. And Niners fans run deep, but some of those guys out there can be absolutely brutal. But when you have your guys running your podcast and 49GM especially, it's one of my preferred websites to read just because you guys are on top of everything from Jordan's mock drafts to Steph's Pro Day tracker. You guys have everything going on. How is it to really operate a website that, in my opinion, I think has grown really fast? I know you have a huge presence, in my opinion, amongst the Niners community. You just did the huge roundtable earlier with Croc and everyone else. And in my opinion, I think you're a household name within the Niners community. How would you say operating a website and really getting that type of content produced? How does that go about your day? I mean, I think that's really exciting personally.
So, my day is I work in sales and then I do web design on my spare time, but the website wouldn't be anywhere without the guys that I work with. David, Leo, Luke, Hugh, Steph, Angie, everyone who's helped contribute. I set everything up, and then I help delegate things, and I do things myself. So I have a really solid team. And shout out to them. Without them, none of that stuff works. To be quite honest, it just doesn't work. I help trying to manage it as much as I can. I'm trying to get into writing, but I have 2 kids and the podcast, and then you saw I was on the other roundtable, and now I'm here with you. I get a lot of folks who reach out, so it's not like I don't want to sound like arrogant or whatever, but I do get pulled in a lot of directions. So I do have a really solid team that helps me out. And first of all, the biggest thing is like my kids come first. So if my kids need me, I gotta push this stuff to the side and take care of my kids. But that's that's just how it goes. And, the fan base, they love or hate me depending on how my opinion wavers. I'm not a homer. I try to give it to you as straight as possible without being a dick about it. It's just, because there's folks out there who want to just, be condescending and things like that. I try not to be that way. I scout with my eyes, not my heart. As much as I used to be a super homer, you start to really dig into these things. You really look at it. You're like, okay, maybe this team isn't perfect. Maybe we should critique a player a little bit harder than what he's being critiqued. And, I feel like I'm just a fan at the end of the day. I'm not here to rip anybody apart. I just look at certain things and just view them, I just view them my way. I try not to be in the group think with a lot of stuff.
Right. And last thing before we get into the show, because I mean, there's so much to talk about. I think one thing you talk about being a fan of the team at the end of the day, but also when you have your sources and you have people that you talk to and you listen to, and it's more than just being a fan. I think when you put your opinion out there, I think it's respectful, to say the least, that you want to get credited for the things you do. And I know it's nice to be a fan. I know it's nice to be a fan of this team. But the same day, when you're putting in all the hard work, whether it's the website, whether it's the podcast, and you're hearing things that whether you had first or last or whether you're for certain is going to happen, you want to get your voice out there and you want to make it known it was your side. Because I know it's nice to be a fan, but you're also a producer. You're also a content creator. You want to get the respect you deserve. And I think that's something that a lot of people within the Niners community who do podcasts, who do articles and blogs strive for. They strive to be credited and have that type of respect amongst the community. And it takes a lot to build that up. And in my opinion, I've been a Niners fan for a long time, and I haven't really started to get into like true content creating up until last year. And building up that respect takes a lot of time. And following along with what you do, it's nice to see that the hard work really does pay off. And I know you're only just at the tip of the iceberg of how much further you can really go. And when you talk about having your own responsibilities, when you talk about having kids, when you talk about working with kids at 49 GM also, because that's a bunch of ragtag guys as well and girls.
They're funny.
A lot. It's absolutely a lot. But I just want to give you your respect, man. I know you're a really hard worker, and it's nice to see that at least right now it's paying off.
I appreciate that. Yeah, and it's I find it's when it's not fun, I'll stop doing it. You know what I mean? It's still fun now. I took my lumps for the Stafford stuff, which give or take here or there. There's a little bit in between from what I had and what was actually reported. So it is what it is. Yeah, and
it absolutely happens. I mean, I'm sure it hasn't happened to not just you, but I'm sure it's happened to Schefter and Rap Sheet. It happens to everyone, and it's like, in my opinion, regardless if the source was right or wrong, I think it's pretty cool to have sources anyways. I think that's really extreme to say the least.
Yeah.
But Javi, let's get right into it, man. I know I'm already taking up a lot of time.
Oh, you're fine, man.
I don't even know where to start, so I'm just going to go right off the bat. Justin Fields was a badass today. His pro day, he absolutely killed it, I thought. I mean, his testing, his throwing, he just absolutely nailed it. And in my mind, it's like Justin Fields is so unselfish. He's just going out there to compete and show himself off. But part of me wants to think in the back of his mind, he knew Mac Jones was throwing today. And I think a lot of coaches in the league who are tied in, especially Shanahan, who saw Mac Jones, I think a lot of us kind of expected to see what we saw out of Mac Jones today. Obviously, he's a more mobile Jimmy Garoppolo, in my opinion. But back to Fields, when you see Fields having that kind of performance, and I was listening to the show, you're talking about how Zach Wilson has a home in New York. I think that's pretty significant. But when you talk about the trade up to 3, when you talk about all the capital they moved in, and that's not to take a guy like Mac Jones. That's to take a guy like Justin Fields or Trey Lance. Where's your confidence meter in terms of how you feel the Niners are going to go between Fields, Lance, or even if Wilson falls?
I think the Niners have put themselves in a win-win situation, regardless of who falls to them at 3, whether that be Wilson, Fields. We won't speak of Mac Jones too much, but because that's in my heart, it's just like, as a fan, I don't want to see another version of Jimmy Garoppolo, essentially. So, if it's Fields, Lance, or Wilson, I'm gonna be super ecstatic. I'm gonna support team regardless of the quarterback they take. Kind of like I support them now with Jimmy Garoppolo. I just have my opinion on the Niners should be improving. As far as the pro day goes, it was exactly as I expected. He had mentioned he was going to run a 4.38, 4.39. And he ran a 4.4. It's right where you thought he'd run. So, and then the throws that he displayed today are exactly what you see on tape too. A lot of really accurate deep balls, very accurate intermediate throws. I wasn't on board with some of the Chris Sims critiques of Justin Fields, how he's a heel clicker and he has a long stride. You don't see any of that stuff on tape anyways. Now, I'm not an expert, but from what I do know, and I was just on the roundtable with guys who are, I believe, smarter than me when it comes to this film stuff. You don't see those type of things that they're talking about. So it makes my conspiracy hat go up. What are the Niners trying to do on the side here? You know what I mean? Like, are they trying to push Mac up the board to elevate Jimmy Garoppolo's trade worth if a team like the Patriots can't get a quarterback, or, to use the famous words of Kyle Shanahan, left at the altar picking at 15. So then, you kind of force the hands of the Patriots, or maybe the Bears want to get a quarterback. Maybe the Washington football team wants to get Jimmy Garoppolo here and they can't trade up to get to Mac Jones or whoever that might be. Or maybe it's just a play to maybe kind of keep Atlanta away or at bay to where they don't get to take Justin Fields at 2 by trading back with the Jets. There's just things that come up in my head that I think about, and maybe Zach Wilson could fall out of 3 to 4, just the things like that. But I think the way everything went down, everything screamed Justin Fields at 3. So that's just what it is. And then the pro days themselves, like I said, I thought it was exactly what I expected. Fields is a very accurate, very talented, gifted young man, and he's going to be, I believe he'll be a very solid pro. And I believe if you are going to be in San Francisco, you are getting one of the best rosters in football. You're getting probably one of the top 5 head coaches in football. You have a solid defense. You're going to be in a winning situation. It's just one of those things where, people talk about a rookie doesn't take a team to a Super Bowl. My expectations are, I set my expectations accordingly. A rookie quarterback, the expectation for me with this roster is a playoff berth. I'm not expecting a playoff win or a Super Bowl. I'm expecting a playoff berth because we just watched the 49ers go 6-10 with Nick Mullins, CJ Beathard, and Jimmy Garoppolo. And for whatever our thoughts are with Jimmy Garoppolo, if he's healthy, that's a 10-win team. And I don't believe the drop-off with Fields, Lance, or Wilson is that steep to Jimmy Garoppolo. So if you're inserting one of those guys in there with a healthy 49ers team, you should be 10, 11-win team making the playoffs, whether that be a wild card or maybe even a division title in the NFC West, because I think we can all agree that no one really got significantly better in the NFC West.
Yeah, and I mean, you can look at the Rams addressing, with Matthew Stafford. You look at what the Cardinals did. I mean, the Cardinals got older. You look at all the signings they did, they got older. Russell Wilson in Seattle, they did nothing to fix offensive line. You look at the Rams, they got Matt Stafford, but that team is so top heavy. It just feels like that even addressing quarterback, not everything can go right. And Stafford's had those injury problems. And one thing I want to touch on, you talk about just how the drop-off would be between a rookie quarterback and Jimmy Garoppolo. Mm-hmm. Before the whole quarterback situation really took place, the Niners had already the 4th highest odds of making the Super Bowl out of the NFC alone. Yeah. And that was before they figured out quarterback, before the trade-up, before everything like that. So when you talk about a roster that seriously is a top 5 roster in the NFL and they're really just one quarterback away, you can make the case that they can make it deep with a rookie quarterback. And that's the thing, is that whether it's Lance, whether it's Fields, whether it's Wilson, I want to be under the belief that a lot of people will say that Shanahan's system isn't easy to understand right away. And we've seen that historically with all of his quarterbacks, except for Robert Griffin. We've seen that historically, but it gives us the impression that Shanahan can make this offense a lot easier for the rookie right away. And I mean, you look at what Nick Mullins was able to do. You look at what CJ Beathard was able to do. And I mean, they weren't impressive, but yes. You saw all the missed throws. You saw all the missed wide open guys. You saw guys like Ayuk and Kittle and even Reed to an extent. All these guys throwing up their hands going, we're wide open, and they're not even getting hit. And it gives you a lot of confidence that a rookie quarterback can step in and just absolutely get the job done. So this kind of leads into my next question. Zach, I know on the show you said Zach Wilson has a home in New York, and I want to take away from that. But also, I want to do a little tie-in, and I want to get your thoughts on this. A lot of people, including yourself, and I respect it because I'm in the same boat, the quarterback collective ties between Justin Fields and Shanahan runs really deep. He's been in that program for some time. But also Mike LaFleur, who's with the Jets now as the OC, also has some quarterback collective ties. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to try and contradict anything between Fields and Zach Wilson and the home in New York. But some people, and I think Vish was one of them, was saying that he thinks that Justin Fields could possibly go too. Would you put any money into those LaFleur quarterback collective ties with Justin Fields at
Absolutely.
all?
Absolutely. But I also look back at the John Beck connection. John Beck is the quarterback coach for Zach Wilson and Justin Fields. John Beck is a Kyle Shanahan guy who's most likely a LaFleur guy. So there's a whole bunch of connections with these quarterbacks. Would I be mad if the Niners took Zach Wilson? Absolutely not. That's fine too. Whatever, who the information I had received that said, hey, Zach Wilson has a house in Jersey, has a house in New York. I've gotten a couple of those text messages, things like that. So we'll see what happens. But I think, I think the Niners, like I said, they're in a win-win situation. If they love 3 guys, and let's say those 3 guys are Lawrence, Fields, and Wilson, they're going to end up with one of those 3. So they're winning regardless. Now, you're picking third. You're gonna get the guy you want. Right. And I think a lot of it is, they hung out with Robert Saleh and those guys at BYU. I'm sure they probably talked the night before the pro day anyways. They would have some decent information. And from everything that Schefter's reported, Ian Rappaport's reported, Jeremy, Fowler, et cetera, those guys said the Jets aren't moving off of 2. They were solid in their thinking, hey, we have a guy at 2 that we want. And I think the Niners know who that guy is. And we all know the Jags are taking Lawrence 1. So that's probably when they solidified the deal to get to 3. And that's just where that. But I mean, again, I would not be upset if Zach Wilson's at 3. But I wouldn't bet on him being there at 3. I would bet that he was going to be a Jet.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm putting my money too. And last point on that entire situation, it's It's baffling to say the least that all the reports have indicated that Zach Wilson and the Jets are linked and everything is connected. And you see that the big decision looms on the Niners between Justin Fields and Trey Lance. If that's how the board falls, and I think 1 and 2 are pretty locked in, I think we do think it's going to be Lawrence and then Wilson. Do you think whether they draft Justin Fields or Trey Lance kind of determines if the Niners really do keep Jimmy Garoppolo? Because we've seen a lot of comps between Trey Lance and Josh Allen and how Trey Lance's accuracy may not be there right away, but the arm talent and the overall talent potential is. Whereas I think Justin Fields is, aside from working with Shanahan, is a more ready-made product. Do you think between the two, do you feel that that'll determine if Jimmy Garoppolo is going to stay as a Niner? And we've seen a lot of, a lot of funny things happen today in regards to Shanahan and Bill Belichick and John Lynch all coming together and talking. And
yeah,
I have a feeling they talked about Garoppolo, but throw that aside, do you think between Lance and Fields will determine if Garoppolo is a Niner, or do you think he's out?
I think he's out. I think he's likely gone before week 1. I think, but it goes back to the Niners being in a win-win situation. They have all the leverage. They have a lot of leverage here. You're picking third. You can run it back with Jimmy Garoppolo, who's, regardless of how I feel about him, you can win games with this guy. If he is healthy and he is, competent in his play, you can win games. But no, you don't spend, if a guy like Fields or Lance is there, then you're going to compete in camp. And, other players realize these things. We've seen this before where a rookie comes in and beats out the veteran, right? We've seen that before. Russell Wilson's done it. We saw Justin Herbert do it, whether he really technically beat him out. He beat him out. It's just, there's some roster politics there with Anthony Lynn. There's just stuff there. And I don't think Jimmy stays at all. And I don't think he starts week 1. I think there is a way to move him. And I think it goes back to the draft. If the team gets left at the altar, like Kyle Shanahan said, who's picking 15, 19 later on in the draft, what if a guy gets hurt in camp? What if Cam Newton goes down in camp? God forbid. Here comes the Patriots. They're calling, hey, can we get Jimmy Garoppolo? And we heard Kyle Shanahan say himself, if there's an offer, we're going to listen. And I'm sure there's offers out there that they're going to listen. Jimmy Garoppolo's value is probably at its highest right now. The Niners have the leverage. There are teams who can't, you got Jags, Jets, and Niners picking 1, 2, and 3. Those quarterbacks are off the board. So you're left with Fields or Lance, and then you got to look at the back end of the first half or first part of the draft. And then, guys in the second round like Mon, Kyle Trask, Jamie Newman, those kind of guys. Those are guys you're probably not going to be building a franchise around. So I would go with that. And then I always ask, what do these rookies do, or what does Jimmy Garoppolo do that these rookies can't do? And my answer is nothing. I'm sorry. And that's not to be disrespectful to Jimmy Garoppolo, but when you turn on the tape, Jimmy Garoppolo's not asked to do very much at all. He's asked to pick a side with pre-snap, left or right. Kyle Shanahan creates a lot of numbers on offense where, he'll get guys in motion to, show what the defense is doing. Get a lot of man coverage look sometimes. And then, of course, Kyle has a bunch of zone beaters where Jimmy just has to, make the right read. And a lot of times it's already predetermined pre-snap. So I think Fields, Lance, Wilson can run this day one. And the fact that all three of those guys are rather mobile. Wilson's probably the best processor of the group. Fields is probably the fastest of the three. And then Trey Lance is one of the biggest of all of them with his size and mobility skills. And he has one of the biggest with the Jimmy thing, when it goes back to Kyle system being super hard, Jimmy Garoppolo came in, played 5 games at the end of the year after being here 7 weeks, 8 weeks, and learned it. You can pick some of this stuff up. And then what Jimmy's asked to do is not very hard. It's on tape. A lot of it is very predetermined at the line. And that's part of why we ran into a lot of problems in 2020. Teams understood what was going to happen. You saw a lot of spot dropping of safeties in the middle of the field to take away Jimmy's probably initial read with the slants and all the quick routes that are going to be over the middle. They trying to force Jimmy outside of his comfort zone to throw outside the numbers, throw down the field. Those things weren't happening. So when you have a guy like a Wilson, like a Lance, like a Field who threaten you vertically and also threaten you with their legs, you're going to see a lot less 9-man, 8-man fronts to allow this offensive stuff to work. Kyle Shanahan spoke about it a little bit ago about his time with RG3. 70% of it was outside zone runs. The other 30 was the read option / RPO stuff. So it really wasn't he wasn't trying to use RG3 in that manner. It's just the threat of that and the way the defenses were stressed out before the snap will allow some things like that to happen. And I think Kyle's excited to get a guy who can do that. I'm not of the Jimmy knows the system and Jimmy does this and Jimmy does that. There's guys who come in day one ready to roll. We just watched Justin Herbert do it. We watched Joe Burrow do it when his line was competent. These guys are pro ready now. And again, there's a lot of stuff that everything on tape shows me that is a very, very simplistic right now for Jimmy Garoppolo the last 2 years. And it helped that the outside zone run was a big deal about it in 2019. I had Joe Staley on my show. He explained the offense to me in depth about how Kyle Shanahan needs that very fast running back to stretch the offensive line, to stretch the defensive line, to allow for all the outside zone stuff. That's how you get the boot actions off of it. That's how you get the defenses to move. And if the Mostert's healthy, if the Niners find another way to get another really fast running back, you add in a mobile quarterback, you're going to see a lot of easy, open, wide receivers for this offense to run wild. And I'm very confident a rookie could run this day one.
Good points, man. Absolutely good points. And just to touch on it, just got a few more minutes with you. The
Very
presser,
good,
I think we took a lot away from that presser. One of the things that really stood out to me was about how Kyle Shanahan really emphasized that a pocket passer is key. A pocket passer needs to come first. But he also brought up the point about how quarterbacks these days are athletic and they need to be able to make plays on the run. Unlike, Jimmy Garoppolo, who pre-ACL, I would have thought he, would have been a lot better on the run at that time.
He did it in 2019 too. He did a little bit of it.
A little, yeah. And we did see the pressure when it got into his face that the confidence level between 2019 and 2020 just absolutely dropped. And the shock value of that was immense. It was absolutely immense. But when Kyle Shanahan talks about quarterbacks who can really do it all, and you have two guys, or really three guys, in Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, and Trey Lance, it almost feels like to them that the options are limitless. I know we've been kind of talking about the whole time about how a rookie quarterback can step in, and honestly, we both think they could succeed instantly. Mm-hmm. Do you feel that regardless of who that rookie is this team still playoff berth bound regardless, or do you think that of the three, one of them offers a little more room for success?
I think Fields and Wilson would offer the most right away. I think Lance, you're gonna take a lot of lumps with Lance. I think his ability to process so much information so fast would allow him to be so successful rather quickly. Because then if you listen to anything Steve Young ever has to say, Steve Young was in the system with Mike Shanahan. He's basically saying Kyle wants an extension of him on the field at the quarterback position, someone who can kind of bail him out. That's where Zach Wilson and Justin Fields kind of come in. They're both rather very smart. They both can process rather well. They both go through the progressions pretty good. So it just gives them that. And if the play doesn't work, they both have the mobility and the wherewithal to make something else happen, move around a little bit here and there. With Lance, I think my concern is he has less than 300 pass attempts. And I was kind of not worried about that until I spoke to a couple other people like, hey, maybe we should pump the brakes on Lance a little bit. Maybe he might have to sit. Maybe he's a midseason type of guy. But I think realistically, Fields and Wilson probably give them the best shot at being a playoff team. I think Lance could be like a Kaepernick situation. He comes in midseason, and competes there.
It definitely feels like regardless of what the team does at quarterback, they have all kinds of, directions they can go in. Bless you. They have all kinds of directions they could go in, and it's really exciting to say the least.
Yeah, there was 286 in 2019. Thank you.
Yeah, 318 pass attempts over the quote-unquote 3 years.
Yeah.
And that kind of, I'm not going to lie, Javi, like I absolutely love Fields, but I'm leaning Lance just because I absolutely love the ceiling. But I'm not going to go and be upset if it's Fields or if it's Wilson or even if it's Mac Jones, as disappointing as that would be. The point is that they just need an upgrade at quarterback. And you look at all the outlying factors, and we're on Lance right now. I like the pro-style offense. I also like the fact that he was able to make a lot of plays with the only offensive player on that entire front is a second-round tackle in Dylan Radins. So really, Trey Lance was able to work with, nothing and still make it happen.
Yeah.
Even just about 300 pass attempts. And then I tweeted out a couple days ago, you look at Justin Fields, where it's like he had the offensive weapons, he had the great system, he had a so-so offensive line, but that doesn't matter. It's the fact that regardless of what was going on around him, he still made the plays and he still made it happen. So when you look at all these factors coming into play, it really makes you wonder, what's Shanahan really going to be looking for? And this kind of leads into my last question right here. It's a little bit of a two-part question. Shanahan talked about how Justin Fields, or I think it was Fields, was saying that he wants to have a second pro day so Shanahan can go and see him in person because he was immobile today. And then also Cam Inman was saying that Trey Lance is also going to have a second pro day that I believe the Niners reached out for and wanted to see him in person also. So kind of a two-part question here, Javi, before we close it off. How much do you factor into pro days versus like the public pro day, like what happened with Jones and Fields today, versus an interpersonal pro day, like what Shanahan's going to go through, versus the actual number of pro days? Do you feel that the number of pro days, like what Fields and Jones and Lance are all having, do you feel that that'll affect their stock in any way, or do you think that with where the Niners are at now, their quarterback pick may already be predetermined?
I think the Niners know who they're taking at 3. But pro days themselves, I think as fans, we may overvalue them, but I think there is some value to them, whether that be the ones that we see on TV versus the ones we don't see on TV. It's a big interview. You know, you have executives there who are like, hey, we're investing this much money. We're investing these picks like the Niners just did into a player. So you want to see this player, how they move, how they walk, how they interact with people. Croc on the last show made a really great point about that. Like, these guys are looking to, you're looking to impress. When you go to a job interview, depending on what your job is, you're probably meeting 2 or 3 people. So in this case, there's 5, 6, 7, 8 really important people for the franchise there that you're looking to impress. But then you multiply that by 20 teams, there's 70, 80 people there. So, I think it matters. I think you want to see a player under some type of pressure. They're looking to impress. You saw a little bit of stuff with Mac today. He kind of started off sluggish. Same thing with Fields. Started off a little slow. Probably some nerves, some jitters to get out. And they did that. As far as the interpersonal ones, this year they're not doing interpersonal ones, but I think they're kind of scheduling for a number of teams. I think that's the rule. You have to have a couple other teams there with you. So Kyle had spoken to the fact that he reached out to, or the Niners have reached out to David Malgetta, which is Justin Fields' agent, talking about setting up a second pro day. And Justin Fields obliged. Apparently, he even said it on NFL Network today about, I'm just going to show you that I can do the same thing every day. And I think that's the beauty of a guy like Justin Fields. Even Trey Lance and Zach Wilson, they do a lot of the same things all the time, and you want to see that repeated. Those repeated reps over and over. But I think there's something to take away from it. I think with COVID and stuff like that, you want to see a guy as many times as you can. There was no combine. I think the Senior Bowl is going to help a lot of players out. That was, for guys who got to go to that was a really big opportunity for some guys. We had spoken to Austin Watkins Jr., wide receiver out of UAB, whose stock is climbing because of the Senior Bowl. He showed out there against some of the best talent at corner and safety. So, I think the Senior Bowl helped a lot of guys. I think these pro days are going to help. And I think those pro days are going to help more because you can actually see the person. Me and you doing this over Zoom, we can see each other, but we really can't, there's that intimacy or that intimate type of feel. And I don't mean like weird intimate, you know what I mean? Like that physical presence. Yeah. So when you feel somebody walk in the room, that's the kind of stuff that you're seeing there. So I think they matter this year. I think previous years probably not so much, but I think this year kind of matters quite a bit. I don't take too much from, the throwing sessions and things like that, but more so like the weightlifting, the 40 times, some of their drills, and of course, just their presence. You know what I mean? How they come into a room, how their teammates who are around them interact with them, things like that.
Yeah, to close it off here, I mean, you make excellent points. I think one point you brought up throughout your whole segment there was that not interpersonal, how they present themselves, how the players go about, how they look, how they talk, even just how their body language is, things of that nature. And you looked at Trey Lance's 2019 film, you saw that this kid was an absolute leader. And then you go and watch Justin Fields, who is arguably playing with broken ribs in the playoff game.
Oh, yeah.
like, oh my gosh, this dude is just, the toughness is unreal. And I think from both perspectives, you can't necessarily teach that type of leadership. You can't really teach that kind of toughness. I mean, it's one thing to take away from a college player doing well in college because it's college. But there's another thing when you've historically heard about players who would sit out bowl games or sit out a couple of games because their ankle was hurt and they didn't want to hurt their draft stock. And I get it. Players need to look out for themselves. It's part of business. But Justin Fields went out there and he played his ass off for his team in both games, pre and post injury. And when you see those kind of things presented from a player, it gives you a lot of confidence that whoever the Niners are going to take between the two, and I think we could say between the two, it feels like it's going to be the right choice regardless.
Yeah.
So, Javi, I'm going to close off with one more question just because it's
just real quick before you with the Justin Fields thing. He was also like a big proponent of getting the Big Ten to play. He got the guys to petition, get them ready to go. That just like that really stuck out to me as a leadership thing. Like, hey, look, I want to play ball. Let's get the Big Ten going. I'm a Big Ten fan. I'm from Pennsylvania. I'm a Penn State guy all the way. I shouldn't even be liking Justin Fields because of the rivalry. But I thought that was a really big deal that he petitioned the entire Big Ten and the other players to, hey, come together. And that's rallying the Big Ten as a whole and players around the Big Ten. And that's, that's a leadership thing to me. And I think that stood out. I think it's a big deal.
It's a big deal to say the least. And last real quick comment here, toughness is only playing hurt. I mean, regardless, I take toughness as something very serious when it comes to college players. And you have guys who look at their draft stock and look at the business side of things. And I know they got to look out for themselves. But
and I mean,
also,
we love George Kittle. He plays through injuries and he's a leader.
Oh my gosh, I know. And certain people on the team who didn't want to play through injuries, not going to go off any further about that stuff. But the point being is that when you have a guy who wants to go out there and compete for his team, I think it goes a long way in terms of the overall draft process. But in any event, Javi, I got one last question for you, man. It's been absolutely crazy to say the least. Just the entire offseason process. It's been slow. And I mean, all of a sudden, the third overall pick, the draft coming up, everything's just been an absolute blur. So I got to ask you, how are you doing? How are you doing outside the Niners, man? how's it been going with you?
Life is good, man. I can't complain. My two kids are healthy. My wife is healthy. I'm healthy. I have a roof over my head, clothes on my back, food on my table. I'm a very simple person. My wife is a nurse, so she's been dealing with COVID this entire time for the last, whatever it is, 13, 14 months at this point now. So I'm trying to be a supportive husband for her. She's being a supportive wife for me in my job. And of course, with the podcast and all the 49ers content, she's really into it. She supports that. So that's a plus. And my kids are great. At the end of the day, as long as my kids are happy, I'm happy. My wife's happy, I'm happy. I'm not a subscriber to Happy Wife, Happy Life, but it does make life a lot easier. And without those three people in my life right now, I don't know where I'd be. I think we're all dealing with something. We all have our, not demons or anything like that, but we all struggle with something. You know what I mean? And I'm back to work, which is a plus. After COVID, I got laid off, things like that. So everything is going well. The site is going great, but but away from 49ers football, which really in the grand scheme of things is very small, in the world. Life is great. And, I can't count my blessings enough. And I have a great team at 49ers Gold Mine, great co-host on the Go Forth and Go podcast, my buddy Fernando. It's just, it's been good, man. It's not, thanks for asking. Finally, that actually felt pretty good to let that out. No one ever asks how you're doing. You know what I mean?
I know. Yeah. It's genuine. And I mean, it's like when I go on walks, I'm always thinking about all kinds of stuff. And one of those things I was thinking about today, I was like, I think a lot of people have just been so caught up in 49ers Twitter and so caught up in just berating everyone's own opinions for something that hasn't even been confirmed yet. And I've been on the lucky side of not being insulted on Twitter for any of my takes, unlike you and a lot of other people, no offense. But I like thinking about it like, at the end of the day, you take everything away from 49ers. You just look at all of us as human beings. And it's like, we're living in COVID times, man. It's like, how are you doing? What I mean? It's just, how are you doing? It's okay to be human every once in a while, and it's
Absolutely.
nice to hear that you're doing good as well. And you brought it up earlier with the Stafford thing. I mean, everyone was just, I'm gonna say it. Everyone was absolutely just going at you for that
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
And
And you know what?
I was reading some of the comments though, and it's like, oh
At the
my
end of the
god, this dude
day,
has kids and family.
at the end of
you
the
know?
day, at the end of the day, I'm not trying to be a reporter. I'm just trying to be a fan who wants to share thoughts. I think the fan base deserves to know as much as possible, whether it's true or not. I'm not looking to make millions of dollars out of all this. I just do this because it's fun. Like I said, when it stops being fun, I'll stop doing this stuff. And at the end, I think the ultimate, the first goal really is just to get, credential to a 49ers game, where I can go into the press box and ask questions after the game. Those are that's ultimately where I want to get to. I'm not trying to be Adam Schefter or anything like that. I think the fan base deserves, as much content as possible from guys like you, myself, everyone else who's out there trying to create content, trying to make it. And, the funny thing is, Adam Schefter started somewhere, Ian Rappaport started somewhere, Jeremy Fowler, all these guys started somewhere. They probably started like us, very low level, and they built their way up. They made enough connections. It just blows my mind that people can't process or imagine that someone like myself or yourself can, reach out to a player and they respond, and you can create a relationship or a friendship. Adam Snyder is a former 49er player. I text him regularly. We and him talk quite a bit. And those type of things open doors for the next one, which led to Joe Staley. Joe Staley led to Frank Gore. And then there's more and more and more, Adam Rank's been on my show. Marcus Grant, those guys from NFL Network, Benjamin Albright has been on my show. Like, these things open doors. And if you're interested in getting into content creation, that's how you do it. You got to take your shots. And when you take those shots, try to take advantage of them as much as possible. And I'm not saying to, be annoying with these people who have a lot of stuff going on in their life, but reach out. And if you show enough ambition, they're gonna respect what you do. And that's why I said, I can call Adam Snyder right now and be like, hey, Adam, what's going on? How's everything? And that's because we've built a relationship over the last 3 years. And that's just how this goes. So it just blows my mind. Like, oh, you don't have this, you don't have that. You don't know what's going on in my phone or my daily life. I live in Austin, Texas. There's guys who live around me that are on the 49ers, who've been on the 49ers. There's agents who live next, literally down the street. It's funny how the world works, and everything's worked out really well. But if anyone's interested in getting to this content game, you got to put your head down and push forward, regardless of what other people say. Kind of post on Twitter, hit mute, and kind of let it go.
I like the mute part, man. And last thing, it's like, if you looked at my DMs, it's like, hey, can you, hey, can you, hey, can you, hey, my name is, just reaching out to all these people.
Exactly.
And what's funny is that it's like, I don't get put off when no one replies to me. It's like, just keep going. You know what I mean? It's not the end of the world. And it's like, at the end of the day, I just want to have fun doing it. I want to chat it up with guys like you and guys like Croc too, and just everyone, because it's football. It's when we put up an opinion out there, it's not for us to, because it's what we want you to think. It's just our opinion and what we
Correct.
view.
Yeah.
And that's why I love seeing all the content left and right, because it's just everyone has their own
fun.
opinion. It's hella fun. It's hella fun until you see what people are saying to you.
I know. Is that you guys who do all the jersey swaps? Like, is that you that does that?
Yeah. Zach,
those are excellent.
Wherever
he does a great job. Those are excellent. So
yeah,
I steal those photos. I just kind of put them on my phone. Yeah, you guys do a really great job over there. And shout out to Coach Timo. I'm a Navy veteran, so hoorah to you.
Javi, thank you so much, man. I know this ran a lot longer than what I wanted, but I think my biggest goal outside of talking football was just being human, making sure that you're doing okay, and just being able to talk to you, just interact, be social, have fun with it. Where can we find you, man? I know your Twitter's down there, but outside of that, what other stuff do you want people to know about? Where can we find you?
So of course, you follow me on Twitter at @JaviVega_. You can follow the podcast at 4th and Gold Podcast on Twitter, and then the website at 49ers Goldmine. We have more content coming. We have guys breaking down all 4 of the quarterbacks that the Niners would be interested in at that number 3 spot. So we're gonna have some breakdowns there. More mock drafts from my guy David and Jordan and everyone else over there doing those things. It's just fun, So it's just check everything out that we're doing. Support is great. If you don't want to support, great, but showing love's a lot easier than showing hate. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice to see people express their honest opinions through accounts that don't look like burners.
Correct. Yeah.
Interact with them a little more. Javi, thank you so much for the time, man. I absolutely appreciate the time. It was fun to talk football, and I'm looking forward to having you on again, my man.
Likewise, you're more than open invite on my show too.
Oh, you'll be hearing from me.